Um, I chose fostering because all those years ago, I used to be sort of the babysitter, the childminder for all my friends and family. And at the time, remember it's 36 years, Brent was looking for foster carers. And I came to the conclusion that and it was suggested to me by someone in a school, that I had a knack with children. So maybe I should consider fostering. I didn't know what fostering was at that time. It was a completely different concept from what it is now. I mean, the same thing, caring for children. But since someone thought I could do that, and I knew I could do it, having looked after everybody's children, um, I, Brent had an ad in the paper, and I applied because I thought I could help more children, yeah, in a more formal, a more structured um, setting. And that's why I went into fostering, really to help children and see them progress and move forward. Because I was doing that as it was with friends and family. And that's what made me foster. And Brent needed help, and I thought I could help. So I went ahead and applied, and I was approved.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Would you like to tell us? So you told us you've been a foster care for a very long time. Have you found that things have changed?
Yes, it was completely different 36 years ago. The process that you went through was not as, I wouldn't say intrusive, was not as detailed as it is now. Times have changed, and 36 years ago, everything was different. So people were more trusting. Not that it was, and they didn't go in all the details, but I had the visits and I had my house inspected and everything like you have now. But we didn't have all these lots of, what did Vargas call it? The form, the Vargas had a name for it. What is it, Vargas? Where
Form
you
F.
well, we had a Form F, but where someone had to write everything about themselves, their strengths and their weaknesses. I think that at the time was the supervisor, the social worker, the assessing social worker, picked that up from the interview. So it was slightly different, but the progression has been, and the details have been for the better.
That's fine. I think what made us, I'll go from the very first item, which is, what made us choose fostering. We made, Surya and I made a decision about 18 years ago that we were blessed enough to have a large home, and we had finished caring for our parents who had extended illnesses through Parkinson's and um, Alzheimer's, and we had a large enough home, and we were very aware of unaccompanied minors who were arriving, and then Brent was looking for carers perhaps who could meet their needs a little bit better because they were coming as unaccompanied minors um, from war-torn countries, and we could relate to that. And although we tended to have a strong emotion to working with young children at all times, we weren't particularly concerned of their faith. It just happened that the children who first came through to us were of shared the same faith as us, and that was perhaps a little bit of an easy way to get involved with catering, caring for young people. But it was mainly my wife Surya who was so passionate about wanting to work with children that we got involved with it. But we have found the fostering experience extremely positive, in particularly Surya. I think I've mentioned it several times that she comes from quite a remote part of Pakistan and was very much wanting to become a doctor. So this was a natural extension, and she could see herself playing a good role. And throughout, it's been, picking up on this, some of the points about the self-assessment and the pre-training or the preparation that is done. I can only say that yes, the time to reflect deeply into your own strengths and weaknesses, and then you get focused on it because you have a purpose in the training you're doing. So we found that very, very useful. And Surya was able to look deep, and I was able to look deep to preempt some of the possible challenges that we might face and prepare for them, and actually develop the right mindset right at the early stages. And that only happens if you, like we did when we did the self-assessment and we went through the training, we were really open-minded and always looking to learn from others who have done their service, who have gone through the process, and we were very keen to learn from them. We didn't think we knew much, and so therefore that helped us absorb a lot of information. We were really open-minded.
Okay.
The fostering has changed a lot. I think it's changed for the better in many, many ways. The support that we get from social services right now is extraordinary. It's very good. And through the pandemic, we've seen it even, they too have raised the bar even higher in supporting us through Zoom and making training available.
Oh, fostering has helped me to make a great difference to the life of my family and the life of the children. As a family, we've learned a lot. We've learned to have people, to live with people of the different culture, to be more tolerant to people's, maybe should I say, wrongdoings, because you can have challenges, and you have to understand, and you have to learn how to cope with it. And when you have children, your own children bringing up, it's a very fine balance to get them to understand. Yeah. But having made that commitment to look after the children, my own family just fell into it. My children they had every child with open arms. They understood, they forgave, and we had a great time. We still have a great time. My son is my nominated carer. He's at home with me, and I get fantastic support from him. Now, the children who come to me, as I said earlier on, presently I do mainly unaccompanied minors. And when the children come, and some Varghese and Diana spoke about the different cultures and not being able to speak the language and everything. Well, I'm a typical one. I'm from the Caribbean. I'm Christian. I look after lots of Muslim boys. And I say boys. I looked after girls before, but presently I do mainly boys. And at the beginning, it wasn't a shock because my children grew up with with children of different cultures, but I'd never had them in my home. The first one, I remember when he arrived, he couldn't speak a word of English. He stood at the door and he smiled, and I smiled back. And that smile sort of broke all the ice. He came in, we made him welcome. The communication was a bit was very difficult because not a word of English. But as an adult, you have to learn to communicate. You have to learn to deal with those things. So it was a lot of signing and repeating and just getting on with it. And in a few weeks, it's amazing how quickly the children learn. So we were able to have little, not discussion, but a little bit of communication. And gradually, you will see in a few months, of course, you have to get them into school as well. So that all helps. And they just pick it up really quickly. Of course, they've got young minds, so they pick it up. And culturally, I because I look after the Muslim boys, I have lots of friends who are Muslims. My neighbor's Muslim, and I have taken the boys to a mosque. I know I cannot go into the mosque, but I've gone outside with them to show them where the mosque is and spoken to imam or somebody of responsibility in the mosque and introduce them so they can follow their own religion. I do not force them to do mine, to come to church with me. I respect them for who they are, and I encourage them to attend their own religious things. For Eid, I I do not celebrate much with them because, as a cultural thing, they prefer to celebrate with their own people. But I will, like the last one this year, Eid fell during COVID. So what I did, they couldn't go out and celebrate with their family and friends. So I brought in, I ordered the boys have got up from Afghanistan. So I got the Afghanistan a spread for them, and we joined in at home with them. So it was just making them feel part of my family. And one of the nice things for me, all the boys, all call me mum. It's quite it's quite amazing when I'm outside with them, and as a black woman, we're in a shop and someone calls mum and I answer. Imagine you can imagine the looks I get. But that's what happens. You're good to them. I respect them. I respect their views. I respect their religion. I respect their culture. And it works both ways.
Yeah, I think there have been.
It's love. You have to show them love. And I mean, we are all the carers. If you didn't love, you couldn't look after anybody. And children sense that. And they will give you love in return.
Patrice, over the last 36 years, how many children you have got?
I've looked after about 157 children.
Wow.
Fabulous.
And counting, because
And
yes, and I think as both Farouk and Patrice have shared, this is an area that you bring your all into, and it's, I think, a shared experience in the sense that they bring their own experiences, but also have experiences from the children, and that actually enrich them as individuals, as people, as a family. And I think that I've worked with both of you, Farouk and Patrice, and it's amazing how people bounce off from each other, and the togetherness and the partnership working within yourselves and with the children is just amazing. And so, as applicants or new people wanting to become foster carers, even when it comes to the language differences, in meetings we provide, as part of the support, we provide interpreters to interpret for the children, because the children need their word. And also, if you ask other foster carers who are of the same or similar culture, religion as the children in your care, they would definitely support you. Also, if we have social workers who actually speak the language of the children in your care, they can actually communicate through them as well. So you are never alone. And I think the experiences of Patrice and Farouk as shared, is just amazing, and it's thought provoking, and also very interesting in the sense that it increases your hope to become a foster carer and to give opportunities to people who are less privileged and who have had very difficult histories and experiences. When you see these children, the sense of loss, the sense of suppression, the sense of fear in their eyes, and then the foster carers receive them, nurture them, give them love, warmth, and that sense of belonging and hope. Within few weeks, you see how they blossom and change, and it's been amazing.
Yeah, you're right.
I would definitely amplify your emotions and what you're saying there. There is without a doubt that every child who we've come across and seen, they do come through very, very challenging. In fact, when we hear some of the stories of in the early days, we used to get quite distraught emotionally. To take us many, many weeks to overcome the stories we were hearing. Over time, we've not become desensitized, but over time we became more resilient in understanding their stories. But you're absolutely on the nail there, that they are so receptive to love and care that we offer them here, and they feel so privileged when social services and when the foster carers and the social workers come and work with the children. They give them so much respect, so much individual respect and consideration, that each one is spoken to with respect and each one's needs are identified, and the children pick up on this positive energy. And it only takes, like, it usually tends to take between 8 to 12 weeks, sometimes maybe 4 months, 5 months, and you see the whole child's psychology and his physiology just change. He begins to feel more self-confident. He begins to, just to show you the impact on, or after a few months, how a person can change. And that's a very positive experience. And like Patrice was sharing the experiences on Eid, it's often surprising. This is the first time we weren't able to go to the mosque either to do prayers, but usually at the end of prayers, we tend to have a cultural where you hug each other. That's this part and parcel of tradition and culture, and marks the celebration of Eid. But in this time, we had 10 children waiting outside, all wanting to come and hug my children, Umar, Safraz, and me. They're all children we've cared for in our home. So we have such an extended family. During Eid, we often have 10 or 12 children coming to see Auntie just to celebrate Eid with her. And those children have all, we've cared for them. They're all part of a kind of extended family. If they see me on the road, they'll stop the car and drive me back home. If I need anything, they say, call us and we'll come and do your gardening with you, or whatever else they want us to do. So it's a really long-term relationship. It's not a short-term relationship.
Very long-term. In my case, yeah. The children come back as well. And only last week, a youngster who'd left me about 5 years ago, and I hadn't heard from him. Well, occasionally I bump into him in the street, and my doorbell rang. And I went back, it was on last Wednesday, and I opened the door, and there he was standing with a big smile. And for a minute I thought, I know you, but what's your name? I wasn't asking, it was going around in my head. And then my son, who was off work that day, he came and he said, "Oh!" And he called his name. And I thought, "Oh, yeah, that's you." And we chatted. And I said to him, "What are you doing around here?" And it was so sweet. And I've had a lot of that as well during the COVID, the boys calling. And that particular one, he said, "Oh, I was working around here, Mom, and I thought I'll pop by to make sure you're all right."
It's very nice.
And I thought that was really nice. But, it just shows, as carers, we do the right things. If you don't, the children never stop. They don't want to see you. They don't want to come back. That's the end. If you weren't good to them, they just go away. But it just shows the love, the support. They know they can still have it, even though they've gone. So they just pop by and say hello. Farouk, I haven't had one to do my garden though.
Well, he comes to help Auntie do the garden because they know how passionate Surya is throughout, well, in the garden, and she's always mixing or cutting branches or planting pots. So that's one of the most frequent offers we get during the summer, if they can come and help prune the trees or cut the bushes with Auntie or clean the driveway with her. But it's still touching. It's very nice to see they think of us.
There is another side to fostering, and we need to be very conscious about it.
Yes.
And that is, apart from what we as foster carers are able to give to the children, helping them to achieve and flourish in their life, fostering provides a huge opportunity for us as individuals. As foster carers, for us as individuals, forget about the children, that is one side. The other side, we as individual foster carers, fostering provides us huge opportunities for us to make changes within ourselves.
Absolutely.
Because of the training that we get, because of the support network with whom we start interacting, with the kind of supervision and guidance that we go through, and with the kind of caring situation which demands us to play different roles depending on the needs of the children and depending on the opportunities this fostering provides to us to go to various offices, interacting with various departments and various situations and various kinds of various things. We start reflecting on our own attitude, our own abilities, our own achievements, ourselves with regard to our own personal religion, language, culture, ethnicity, food habits, the way we wear our dress, the way we walk around on the. All these start changing, basically because this helping profession makes our attitude to somebody who needs to reach out when there would be a need for. Now, let me share with you this experience of this foster carer. This was a couple who came from India years ago. They did not have any education. They did not know to talk Hindi. They were Hindu by religion, very, very orthodox Hindus. And they came here. They got into jobs. They were able to continue to support. And then they thought, hey, why not try out fostering? They applied and they became foster carers for Brent. And they started fostering children from different countries with the different languages and different religions and different of everything. The very attitude of these Orthodox Hindu foster carers started changing, and their attitude started becoming bigger and bigger, wider and wider. They knew for the first time what halal meat meant for this Afghani boy, and eating meat in a house where staunch Hindus cannot even think about it. These two sides living together in the same kitchen, on the same dining table. Here is meat, halal meat, and here there is vegetarian, but both the parties sitting. And this fostering opportunity provided these foster carers to accommodate, to broaden their own attitude and become much more diverse in their thinking and a much more better persons as individuals for themselves. That very fostering did bring about a lot of attitudinal changes within the mindset of the children of these foster carers. It is not only in themselves, within the children of these foster carers. Now you can see a vibrant family here. And if you talk to these foster carers, they will say it is fostering which made all the difference in our lives.
Absolutely. I'd like to certainly add on or reinforce the point that Varghese is making, and that's the not only the resilience that both Surya and I have over the years, because we came from a pretty orthodox Muslim family, and although a number of the placement children that we cared for share our faith, we also had children who didn't share our faith. But the whole experience does broaden you. It is not naturally something that just happens. It grows on you at each instance. If you're looking up to children from different faiths, it just happens. You just open up to the whole experience. It's not a forced awakening. It's a very gentle awakening. The awakening is because you are more focused on looking after and meeting the child's needs. And the word needs is a pretty cold word. Overall, it's a human being. And each child who walks into our home, often over time, I'm not saying this happened with the very first few children. I'm saying that over time, I have seen the the subtle change and the transformation in my own children, and how they welcome each child, and each new child who has come along has been greeted with more love and more reassurance than ever the child before. That's only because the family grows. My children, my own children, began to understand and adapt at a very natural pace, not even knowing they were going through this development, but they do. And now when we go out, sometimes when we go out to a gathering, etc., you can see how they're interacting with a whole range of different people from different backgrounds, as opposed to the stereotype, Muslim people sticking with the Muslim families. That is very, very typical in weddings and outgoings. That's so typical, isn't it? We can at least be familiar with the group of people we can relate to. And it shows when we travel. You can see how Resham interacts, my children interact with other people. And so Varghese is absolutely spot on. And I'm glad he's reminding me of all the things we can't often share in a conversation that's like this. And somebody has to remind us and rekindle the memory that there is a huge growth that goes on with the family. Of course, it all depends on how well you frame it. If your experiences are going to be positive, with fostering, they are going to be positive because you're framing things in a positive light. You're not coming in with a stereotyped idea that you're a foster care, so there is a task-centered approach. It isn't a task-centered approach. It's the learning approach. Each individual is going to teach you new things, and you're going to have to keep adjusting. And you're on, at every point, you're going to be challenged. My own personal recollection, even last week, was how I was battling with one of my young people because I have a strong issue with mobile phones being used in the home at all times. But I had to adjust, I had to learn. Hang on, this is a different world. Mobile phones are perhaps an important aspect of how this child is working. So I'm saying that even I had to grow, and I continually grow. So how I frame things is very important. If I frame them positively and I approach the children I care for in that positive framework, always wanting to accommodate them rather than instill my will on them, it is a balancing act. But it's all growth, and it helps me grow as an individual.
Oh, thank you so much. I think to add to all what has been said, fostering, it's also an experience, and it's also a collective responsibility of all, absolutely, including foster carers and children and social workers and everybody. We all working together for a common goal, for a common purpose. It's to bring a positive change to the lives of the children that we look after, to the lives of all individuals involved. It's a learning experience, and it also gives the opportunity to challenge ourselves in terms of who we are and where we want to get to as individuals and as a human being, as a community and as a society, and as a nation and as a world. We are all connected in one way or the other. and every little helps. Whatever we can do to bring a change in oneself, in the life of a child, in the life of another person, it's a great opportunity. And I think we celebrate that we've been able to bring ourselves. It's only about only self, but service to humanity, service to children who will be the future. And I think that it's amazing, and we are all very grateful, and we respect all of you. And Patrice and Farouk, you've been amazing sharing this opportunity and sharing this experience with us. And I'm sure that the the our listeners and people who have shown interest in fostering will be able to ask us questions about whatever is probably worrying them, concern them, issues that they want clarifications to, and how we have got here. I think we'll be able to answer them and take them forward, and hopefully they will also be speaking like we are speaking and talking like we are talking in the near future, because it's an experience that if you put yourself to, you can do it, because you are not alone, and we all started from somewhere, and we have to start from somewhere and have that focus and that goal, that aim to make a difference, make a change in the lives of others.
Catalina, before you we go, can I just say one thing about training in Brent?
Sure.
I mean, when we foster, we're not alone in this. We have a lot of training from Brent. We have a lot of support, and the training is very pertinent to what we do. I do unaccompanied minors. There's training for people who deal with unaccompanied minors. There's training for resilience. There is training for everything. And you need, as carers, we need to attend the training. I mean, these are professionals. We are also professionals, but we're learning from the professionals and how to deal with things, how to cope with things, especially things like the unaccompanied minors. They come with a lot of trauma. And that we need, as carers, we need to know how to cope with it, to be able to help the children and help ourselves. Because if a child goes through so much terrible trauma, I mean, how are you not knowing how to deal with it? How are you going to support that child? You have to get CAMs, you have to get other professional bodies to help that child. And because the child is with you 24/7, you are the one seeing that child, and you can tell the social worker, well, I think that child needs help here. And as you go on with your fostering, the child would come to trust you and disclose lots of things to you, which, when you discuss with the social worker, they will find the necessary means of support, necessary means of counseling and whatever to support that child, to pull them through. So training is very, very important. You need to enhance your own practice. Training, networking, they're good for your practice.
Yes.
So when you start, get into your, a mentor, a fostering mentor, a foster carer, you can talk to. And we don't have the answers. As foster carers, we don't have all the answers. But your social workers are also there, supervising social workers, to help you along. And good luck to all of you.
If I may add here, because I spent a vast amount of my time looking after children who are unaccompanied, and Patrice has pointed out very well that they do go through a really difficult period, and where the training kicks in Initially, my own personal confession would be that I thought, well, training, I don't need training. I already have my children, and look, they're now hitting the age of 14 and 15. We are parents, and we don't need training. Until I realized many years ago, when I was speaking to one of the social workers who came to assess us, and we were having a conversation, that I realized that I hadn't put it right in my mind. I was using the word training as very, again, one of the cold words, and it wasn't about training. It was more about personal development. I realized that if I wanted to be a foster carer, I wasn't going to be somebody's parent. I had a different emotion, a different sense of investment in the child. If I was their parent, I could maybe reprimand them. Maybe I could be more stern with them. Maybe I could perhaps set stronger boundaries and insist on putting those boundaries in place. But there I was being a parent. But when I'm being a parent who is also a foster carer, I had to develop those skills. They weren't natural. I have to be aware of how am I going to recognize trauma in a child who's coming after a 6-month journey in the back of a trailer or in a container, who had occasional stops after every 2-3 days of seeing sunlight, who had walked for several nights in the night to pass the borders across different countries, and often 13 different countries. A child who had seen some of his colleagues die on the journey, who had eaten green plants, leaves, in a way to sustain themselves. So that's trauma, and I wouldn't naturally know what trauma looked like. I wasn't exposed to it, I wasn't trained to it. But when I went for the training with the idea that this is development, I assure you, I began to absorb a lot more personal experience from the training. So suddenly things began going for looking after look children or speak children who are having difficulties in their behavior and how to manage aggression, or even the first aid training prepares you, opens your mind up to, and opens your mind, being developing you to be able to assess this child. When some of the children haven't been able to sleep at night for a long period of time, or I can sense, oh, this child is now seems anxious after 2 years or 3 years of being with us, you would think, well, he's anxious because of this or the other. But you often recall that his past has come from these war-torn countries, and maybe it's taken 3 years for it to manifest and to raise up in his mind. But he suddenly didn't want to sleep in the room alone, and he wanted one of us to be much nearer to him. So we wouldn't be able to recognize these things if we weren't going for the training. So the training is really an important part of your personal development. And you're going to enjoy the training if you come into it with the right attitude, that you're going to make a big difference to the child's growing and his level of happiness, because you are better prepared, better able to understand him or her, and training becomes a really important part. And I take my hat off to Brent for the level of training that they ask us to do. I haven't been as good as I should have been, but I am aware of it. I'm aware of the opportunities. So it's an important personal decision to go for the training, to go for the development, and I would encourage it very much.